Hello. Today we're starting in Luke chapter 24, verse 13. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." What a good recap. So these were disciples of Jesus, but maybe not apostles. Jesus' disciples were a lot more than 12, and they were all trying to figure out what happened. What went wrong? Well, nothing went wrong. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe that all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Now that would be a conversation I would like to hear. Throughout this whole series, I've been feeding you the prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. Here, he gives them in one conversation, all of history that led up to him. There would be nothing more inspirational than that. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening, the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning with us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" The Bible doesn't say why all these people didn't recognize Jesus at first. To be honest, I'm not sure why either. There are a few possible reasons, like maybe his resurrected body looked different, or people were too distracted. But this reminded me of how sometimes God doesn't reveal something to us till the time is right. It would be nice if we could know sooner rather than later, but God always knows the perfect timing. So perhaps there was some sort of magic barrier that kept them from recognizing Jesus. Why? Because he had to reveal their hearts before he revealed himself. I don't think that's too far-fetched, because he miraculously disappears as well. He had power. Let's move over to John chapter 20, verse 19. On the evening of that first day of the week, when the disciples were together, with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. Luke says that the previously mentioned disciples went to the apostles and told them what happened. So even though the women saw the empty tomb, Peter and John saw the empty tomb, Mary saw Jesus, other disciples saw Jesus, even with all this, the disciples were still scared. It's hard to blame them. It was confusing times. And part of me wonders if there's a story we don't know. Maybe earlier a Pharisee threatened one of the disciples or something. Still, the only reason they would need to be afraid is because the religious leaders killed their leader. Even if their leader has or has not resurrected, what does that mean for them? That's why when Jesus walked through the locked door, he said, "Peace be with you." They had sprinkles of evidence, but they did not have peace. Jesus revealed himself to them to give them that. Again, Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you." And with that he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone's sins, their sins are forgiven. If you do not forgive them, they are not forgiven." Maybe that's confusing, but All it means is that, first, the Holy Spirit dwells with us now. We are not distant from God. He is with us all the time. And secondly, the entire point of all this is that forgiveness is given to all those who accept it. Jesus did pay the price for literally every sin that exists. It just depends on if we accept it or not. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." I don't think Jesus was necessarily being mean to Thomas, but he was sort of foreshadowing his ministry to come. Thomas will soon tell people about Jesus, people that have never seen Jesus. So Jesus is telling Thomas that not everyone can be as lucky as him. Those who believe without their 5 senses are truly blessed. And I think even today there's a concept kind of like this. Some only believe in Jesus when they get healed of a disease or if they see a vision. But some of us believe just because we hear about him. I wouldn't say there's a hierarchy, like the ones that don't need a sign are better than the ones that do. But I just think that some of us should be grateful that we believe easier. We believed because of the words of the Bible. Speaking of, let's end on that. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. We finish next time. See you then.